Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to today's webinar, Connected Data for Better Business Outcomes. I'm Ben Tuck. I'm a product marketing manager here at Precisely, and it's my pleasure today to be joined by Jay Daly from Dun Bradstreet, a strategist. And we've got a really great discussion in store for you today. We're going to be talking about why it's so important for organizations to leverage external data and data enrichment to enhance their decision making, their operations, and their AI and analytics initiatives. Some of the persistent challenges that these organizations might face in that data enrichment space, and how Dun Bradstreet and Precisely are coming together to solve these issues and provide some real world value across industries to our joint customers. So really exciting discussion. Before we get into it, would love to hear from you all. So if you have any questions as we go through the session, please leave those in the chat and we'll do our best to answer them at the end. We've got a little bit of time devoted to questions. If we don't get to your question, we'll be sure to follow up with you after the webinar, so please leave it in the chat. And then there are some resources here in the webinar portal that we really encourage you to check out in addition to staying through to the end on this session. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Jay to talk about how Dun Bradstreet is solving some of the major challenges that their customers are facing and the unique approach that they're taking to that.
Okay, thanks, Ben. Greatly appreciate the intro. From a general business perspective, I mean, if you take a look, you will find literally hundreds of studies out there over the past 10 to 15 years that talk about the cost of bad data. And now, fast forward to the last 3 years and the AI explosion, foundational data is critical, right, to have that. And if you don't have the data that you need, you are at an extreme competitive disadvantage. Dun Bradstreet and Precisely are both companies who are aimed at trying to ensure that our joint customers have the data that they need so that they are leading rather than following. To dig a little bit deeper from a Dun Bradstreet perspective, we have been, as a company, around for over 180 years. But realistically, what you see on the screen is the process that started with the advent of computers, right, and the storage of data. So it's really been about the last 50, 55 years. And we have refined this process over time to make sure that, number one, we're collecting data globally to ensure that all the information that our customers need to make their decisions is brought in, synced to a single entity record, using the DUNS number, cleansed to make sure that the data is consistent, and then enriched with our proprietary modeling solutions, and then packaged up so that, in effect, our customers have easy access to it in real time. So that's our story as it relates to building the foundational data that you guys will need to actually succeed in business. The customers that we have today, it's all about making confident decisions. And there are 3 primary areas that Dun Bradstreet focuses on. Solutions that will help you grow your business, which is obviously critical to all organizations. The second area, which is one of the areas we're probably most well known for, which is managing your risk. So this includes fraud, vendor and supplier assessments of whether or not you should do business with a company. And then the same thing from a customer side, right? Are you going to get paid? Will you actually receive money from that particular customer, and in what timely fashion? And then the last piece is just overall controlling your costs. Again, automating as much of the processes as you can with the data needed. And especially when we start talking about the generative AI type experience, right? That data has got to be able to be used agentically within agentic workflows. And then it, again, has to be critically important that it's accurate, up to date, to meet your business needs.
Awesome. Yeah. And one of the things we find at Precisely is that we've got a lot of joint customers with Dun Bradstreet. And so really recognizing that across our organizations, we see a bunch of customers, whether that's in financial services or insurance or telco, that understand the need to make these more confident decisions and have that more complete data foundation that Jay's talking about. And so they might be blending a lot of the industry-leading business and firmographic data from Dun Bradstreet with things like property attributes or demographics or street data potentially from Precisely to just get that more complete picture for whatever their priorities be, whether that's, again, growing your business or managing your risk or cutting your cost. And we know that this really extends beyond just Dun Bradstreet and Precisely to a number of organizations, and that folks are really bringing in all of these different external data sets to get that more complete picture and be able to make those confident decisions that are going to drive their businesses forward. We also both know that historically working with external data sets and incorporating those with your first party data can be a little bit challenging. We hear folks talk about really long time to value cycles, and in some cases, the cost of actually going through that ingestion and onboarding being even more costly than actually licensing the data itself. And this is for a number of reasons. You think about how you approach this process. It's going to be evaluating, well, what data do I need to support my use cases, whether that be maybe planning a new restaurant branch for a fast food chain and needing to understand the competitive landscape or some of the demographics in that area, and then having to go through evaluations and assessing the quality and the completeness and the currency of those data sets from different vendors, and then actually going through the process of bringing it into your organization, integrating it with your existing data, your existing workflows and records, and then ensuring that your teams can actually use that data and that they understand its purpose and how it's going to be incorporated into different analytics and operational workflows. And so as Jay just laid out, obviously Dun Bradstreet and Precisely are both taking steps and have taken steps to really address this challenge for folks. And so Jay walked through that sort of comprehensive approach that Dun Bradstreet takes to making this onboarding challenge as seamless as possible for their customers using persistent IDs, the DUNS number, as well as really rigorous processes to ensure the quality and the completeness and the currency of the data, and that it's ready for immediate use for real-world use cases. And at Precisely, we've taken a very similar approach using unique IDs to make that onboarding and linking process as easy as possible for our customers, and really just ensuring that they can get to value as quickly as possible. But again, we've talked about how folks are using data from a number of different providers, and even if independently, Precisely and Dun Bradstreet have both made that process really streamlined for their customers and sort of cut out that onboarding and integration cost, the cost still exists when it comes to using data from different data providers in tandem. So if you're an organization and you're pulling in data from a few different vendors, it can be tricky to actually bridge the gap between each of those independent sort of work streams and overcoming that disconnect. So even if folks have really polished data products that make that onboarding process easy, traditionally those haven't really been plug and play with each other. And you can think about how this kind of gets out of hand the larger your scale is and the larger your time horizon is as well. If you're an enterprise organization that's working across multiple vendors and you're using this data for a long period of time, data certainly changes over time. So maintaining these linkages across all of these different vendor data sets as well as your own first party data just gets more and more cumbersome and more difficult as data sets change or maybe formats get updated or release schedules between providers are different. And so we know that folks are using data from across organizations like the two of ours to make more confident decisions. And we know that there are certainly methods to overcoming this challenge with integration, but that at scale it gets tricky when you are actually using data from across the wider ecosystem. And so we're really trying to come together, Dun Bradstreet and Precisely, to tackle this big disconnect. How do we go from having folks have this sort of persistent onboarding integration challenge from across vendors to making that as seamless as possible? And the way we're doing that is a program called Data Link. Now, Data Link is a partner program, and it's also really a connectivity solution. So what it does is it pre-links the data sets from across leading data providers to make it just as easy as a column join to really bring in all of the data that you're going to be needing for your operations, your analytics, maybe your agentic AI sort of workflows and just AI initiatives in general, as Jay was speaking to earlier. And what that really does is it cuts out all of the time and effort and resources that traditionally would have had to go into creating those linkages between the data and keeping that up to date over time. And that has a number of really tangible benefits for folks. We think about the time to value and how when your data team doesn't need to be as focused on building out these linkages, matching up these records, and really managing that over a long period of time, they're able to just focus on what matters most, which is using that data to tackle your priority use cases, whether that's sort of finding a new location for a restaurant or maybe evaluating the financial risk involved with a business or investment decision. So much faster time to value because you're cutting out all of the resources that would have to go into that integration and that onboarding process from across multiple vendors. You're also able to reduce your costs and use your budget a lot more efficiently by really cutting out the overhead that would traditionally be associated with that process and the ongoing sort of management of that data and those linkages. And you're also just able to innovate much faster and build more robust products or tackle your priority use cases much more quickly because you're able to much more immediately see what it's like when you're able to bring in these different data sets and use them in tandem and have that really expanded perspective. So all in all, it's really sort of a fundamental shift in how folks are bringing data together rather than having the individual organization sort of do it all on a case-by-case basis downstream. We're really moving the burden of that linking and that maintenance upstream to the folks that actually are building these data products and know their ID systems and their data the best to really do that work for these organizations, for organizations like yours, and then have the benefits really sort of cascade downstream to the folks that are using this data in their day-to-day operations. So I'm talking sort of at a high level here, but how do we actually make that all happen? The way we do that is with the unique IDs that folks are already comfortable with and are already using. And so having that connection between the persistent ID systems that our organizations use really empowers the end user, in this case, the organizations using the data, to be able to move more quickly and not have to go through such a cumbersome integration and maintenance and linking process. So by connecting the unique IDs that Precisely uses, for example, the Precisely ID, which is appended to addresses, or parcel IDs, building IDs, street segment IDs, and connecting that through to really industry-leading IDs like the Dun & Bradstreet DUNS number, folks that are joint customers of ours are able to really immediately seize on that value and just much more easily be able to tackle their priority use cases. So to get a little bit more context on what the DUNS number is and why we're so excited to be linking Precisely's data to Dun Bradstreet's through it, I'm going to pass it back over to Jay to give a little bit of context about the DUNS number and why it's the pillar of business data worldwide and has that renown.
So many of you may already be aware of what the DUNS number is and how it's used. But just in the event that you don't, I wanted to take a second and run this, get this concept across to everybody. So again, Dun & Bradstreet is bringing together literally thousands of sources of data, right, into our organization. We have over 6 million business entity records in the database as of today. And that process is all around making sure that the right information resides on the right entity. And if you think about it from our historic point of view, right, if a business bankruptcy occurs and Dun & Bradstreet takes that bankruptcy in and applies it to the wrong business record, not a good scenario for anybody, right? So we've gotten very, very good at ensuring that that information, all information coming into Dun & Bradstreet gets to the right entity record, which is the DUNS number. And what we provide to our customers, right, is the ability to use that same matching algorithm so that they can bring their data into Dun & Bradstreet, get the appropriate DUNS number associated with their customer or vendor, and then leverage that, right, to bring in all of the insights that Dun & Bradstreet has to drive their business. So at a very high level, that's how we would use the DUNS number in this process. Ben?
Yeah, and I think it really sort of underscores just how powerful data link is. It's if you've got these records, as Jay was saying, that have a DUNS number on them, then suddenly you're able to connect through to all of the data that Precisely has across locations and demographics and so forth. And similarly, if you're coming in and you've got Precisely data, you've got Precisely's unique IDs on your data sets, and you're interested in bringing in this data that Jay is talking about, you're able to really seamlessly just make that connection through the linkage between the DUNS number and Precisely's IDs. So it really sort of expands the aperture from both perspectives and just makes it so easy for folks that are either already joint customers of ours, or maybe they're just using data from one of us and they're interested in learning more about how they might apply that data from the partner as well. So we're really excited about all the connectivity this opens up and the ways that it brings our data together and just delivers more value for folks. And I think to highlight what that value actually looks like in practice, want to focus on some practical use cases here of how we see folks coming together to use our data for real world use cases. And so one of those I think that's applicable across industries and across organizations is just optimizing territory management and customer engagement. And so for Precisely, we tackle this problem with giving folks, for example, boundary data that they need to spin up those territories, or demographic data so that they can get a better sense of where the customers are, what the behaviors or spending patterns might look like, as well as things like property details that are going to give them a clear sense of, hey, this is a commercial property. These are all of the factors associated with it, so that sales reps or folks that are doing targeted marketing can make more informed decisions about how they're going to go out to market and how they're going to target customers. But obviously, that's not the full extent of the data sets that folks are using. And we know that for a number of our customers, they're also employing data from Dun & Bradstreet to tackle this use case. So Jay, I want to ask you now, how are you guys seeing at D&B some of your data being applied to this use case specifically?
Yeah, so from a Dun & Bradstreet perspective, right, the physical attributes, right, of an area or a building, right, are one of the components. But additionally, some of the firmographic data on the D&B side relative to who that business is, what they do, who owns the business, are they related to other businesses, right, within your portfolio today? Or is there white space available, right, within an existing customer? That is a key driver, right, in setting up territory management. Additionally, there's the added component of there are companies out there that you really probably shouldn't do business with. So being able to use Dun & Bradstreet to kind of identify those, target those, and pull those out, right, from a selling process can significantly reduce the amount of wasted time on the sales organization, which nobody can afford today.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I think when you're able to bring sort of both of those expanded perspectives together with your own first-party data, you're really, to what Jay just said, able to cut out the inefficiencies and really able to optimize this process and get in front of the right people, the right time, and just ensure that your sales teams are operating in the most efficient way possible. So we think there's a ton of synergy between the data sets that we support folks on this use case with, and having all of that data pre-linked in a single view that you're able to operationalize is a really powerful way, we think, to use data link in this partnership. Getting a little bit more vertical focused now, we also think that there's a lot of opportunity here with bringing our data together to support underwriting and property evaluation and risk assessment. So from the Precisely side, we think about how this is a pretty complex, very location-centric process. You've got to have the right address data. You've got to have accurate geocoding at like a rooftop level for the right precision. And you've got to really understand the properties that you're looking at. So you could have multiple buildings spread across multiple parcels with a number of addresses that are associated with those buildings. And they could very easily be multi-tenant buildings as well. So being able to really fully understand a property, in addition to some of the external risk factors, is one of the ways that we traditionally approach this. But obviously, there's a ton of firmographic and business-related details that Dun Bradstreet's also going to be able to provide that really open this up from a whole new perspective for you. So, Jay, I'm going to ask you again, sort of, how do you normally approach this risk management and sort of risk assessment use case from Dun Bradstreet's side?
Yeah, and to the same point we made previously, right? There's a ton of companies that are using Dun& Bradstreet as a part of the underwriting property process. Critical components are the financial risk of that organization, as well as how well they're paying bills. What is the climate risk for that particular area? And one of the things that's really interesting about this use case, by combining data, right, is looking at on the Precisely side, who else is around them and what's the risk associated with those particular businesses or properties. You start talking about, chemical storage, things like that could be nearby, that would impact on your underwriting type of exercise, right? It
Yeah,
definitely
definitely.
changes the risk.
Yeah, I'd imagine if you have a ceramics studio underneath the business that you're looking to insure, that might have an effect on the policy that you're underwriting. So,
Yep. Yep.
yeah, definitely being able to bring all those factors together and really get that full sort of picture of risk from a 360-degree view. And really, as Jay was just saying, understanding the co-tenancy and adjacency risk, as well as just the full scope of the property that you're looking at. So, want to just bring in a an actual customer of ours that is using both Dun Bradstreet and Precisely data in tandem and using Data Link. And it's one of the top 3 telcos in the US here. So they've actually been working with our data on a fiber expansion initiative and figuring out opportunities for that expansion, as well as where they're going to be able to have the most impact. So um, from the Precisely side, we've been working with this customer a lot on their address data and their property data, and being able to bring that in and have a unified record there that's going to span their various departments. So you might think about the field teams that are going out there, or the marketing teams that are looking for new opportunities, or just the folks that are actually doing all the work of keeping their internal data systems from being siloed. So we've been engaging with them for a long time now, and we know that they're also a Dun & Bradstreet customer as well. So they expressed a lot of interest in having that connection. And Jay, I want to just quickly pass it over to you to talk about maybe the work that Dun & Bradstreet's been doing with this joint customer of ours, and then kind of how we bring it together.
Yeah. So the building aspects, right, or the location aspects are one component in what the demand would be, right, for a particular area, or again, when you're talking about laying fiber, right, it's a
Mm-hmm.
path. And so that's one factor. The other factor is for the businesses that are in those locations, what is the potential demand
Mm-hmm.
and utilization? And again, a lot of the data that D&B is able to provide, right, is allows the customer to understand that while there may be a significant number of businesses here, or conversely, there may be a small number of businesses in a particular location, the demand for that solution or service, right, from telco scenario could be high or should be high.
Yeah.
So that's part of the way that they can use the D&B data along with the location data to come up with a better solution.
Yeah, and I think they were really able to see the value of Daylink and see the effects on their business because, as Jay just said, they were using data from Dun& Bradstreet to support this fiber rollout and find those business opportunities and understand where to engage. And they were also using the Precisely data to have that master address record. But when you've got those fragmented and you've got to do a bunch of work to actually get those to talk to each other, it's going to take you a lot longer to actually roll out and really power this fiber expansion initiative, as opposed to when you've got data link and those records are already connected and pre-linked up for you to use immediately and just start getting value across your organization. So they definitely saw a ton of value there in just in terms of the efficiency with which they're able to approach this, and the ability to do it at scale and very quickly across the country. So really cool story there of how this telco is using data link in a real world situation. To cap off this discussion of use cases, I think one of the things that we really want to highlight is that there's a ton of opportunities in this partnership across industries. So touched on a couple of these now. Insurance, we talked about the underwriting use case, talked about territory management, which we've got categorized under retail here. And then we just talked about our joint telco customer, which really is hitting on all of these different use cases with data link, using the data between our two organizations. But I don't know that we've really gone as in-depth on financial services. So Jay, how do we sort of see this coming together for some of our financial insurance customers, or excuse me, financial services customers?
Yeah. So again, part of the mix, right, for a financial services customer is the state of the building, right, and the location that they're in, and the potential demand for business, right, within that
Mm-hmm.
location. But additionally, you look at from a compliance standpoint, is this a company that I should be doing business with, right? Does it provide potential risk associated with brand, right?
Mm-hmm.
Additionally, market analysis, right? So overlaying business demographics within a specific area. Where do I want to set up my next branch, type of thing.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it gets down to, similar to underwriting, right, as well, is, what is the risk, financial risk, right, of a particular business as it relates to bringing them on into the portfolio from whether it's a loan, credit card, right?
Mm-hmm.
All of those types of scenarios for the financial services.
Yeah, yeah, I think it really hits on what you kind of opened the whole session with, which is just you got to have all the data that you need to make those more confident decisions. And so when you're able to bridge the financial and firmographic and business demographic data and marry that with location, you're really able to open up a lot more potential for what you're able to do. So we're really
Absolutely.
excited about the just widespread applications across industries. Want to bring us to a close here with where we're going with data link. I think one of the things that we're really excited about is that this isn't just a one and done for us. It's not as if we're just bringing together the providers that you saw on that earlier slide and calling it there. We really see this being an ever-evolving, expanding ecosystem of data providers that are all coming together to really cement that interoperability upstream for organizations, being able to bring in more and more folks as time goes on, and therefore deliver more and more value as more of that data becomes pre-linked and connected and maintained over time for all of our customers. So the future look ahead on where that expansion might go. Currently in some discussions to bring in potentially a household data provider. So this would enable folks that are using data from Precisely and Dun Bradstreet and the other organizations associated with data link to also be linked into data that would make it easier to engage with folks where they are and have a better sense of how, for example, an insurance policy might be relevant after a significant life event or something like that. So in addition to this, we're also looking into some data that has to do with permitting and a number of use cases that opens up as well. And we're just going to continue to bring in more and more partners to make it just a more robust ecosystem. So call to action here at the end is I would really encourage you to check out what you can do with data link, whether you're just using Precisely data today or just using Dun & Bradstreet data, or maybe you're not using either data from either of our organizations and you just have a set of records that's internal and first party, and you're trying to figure out where to go from there and how to most efficiently start bringing in external data and start filling in some of those potential gaps that you're looking to solve for. So with that, I think we're going to have some time here to go through some questions. Um, okay, let's see here. So a first question that we've got coming in is something that I think is very much top of mind for everyone, and I think Jay touched on it a little bit earlier with the agentic comment, but this person asks, AI has become a priority for us. Does this partnership support AI initiatives, and how so? So I guess I'll start off, and then Jay, I'll ask for your perspective on that. I
Sure.
think in general, it really comes back to having the context that you need for AI and for AI agents. And so uh, rather than thinking about it in the traditional like garbage in, garbage out data quality method, it's also about the completeness. So if there's not enough context, if there's not enough data coming in the first place, then you're really not going to have all of the perspectives that you need for those outputs. And so it's really important for any AI initiative to make sure that you're supplying the full context that the AI needs to actually reason and provide recommendations going forward. So I would say that with data link, bridging that gap for interoperability and connectedness, you're able to just have a much more robust foundation supported to that AI much more easily than you would if you're trying to stitch together a bunch of different little siloed bits of data from providers yourself. So, Jay, anything that you want to add on that, or any thoughts about
Yeah, yeah.
AI and support for that? Yeah.
Again, is a huge initiative inside of Dun Bradstreet.
Hmm.
We are front and center when it comes to AI, and this ties in really well with the launch of Dun Bradstreet's agent-ready data. This is a MCP solution, right, that is available to customers. Allows agents to come in and pick up a DUNS number and or any other DB data that they need. And with that DUNS number, now they can go to data link, right, to get the Precisely ID that's associated with that particular DUNS number and start adding the Precisely data to the mix, right? So
Hmm.
the end result is that the solution from an agentic standpoint now offers much more robust data, right? Not just Dun Bradstreet, not just Precisely, but the ability to, in an agentic workflow, combine it all.
Yeah. I think the other thing that it kind of is easy to overlook is that a lot of the folks, the professionals that would have had to spend a lot of time and resources on creating these linkages and maintaining the links between Dun Bradstreet data, Precisely data, first party data, are now freed up from that, and so they're able to also put more support into these AI initiatives and into these AI systems. And so, rather than data wrangling work, or focusing more on that, you're able to kind of take that time and effort and instead invest it into being more innovative when it comes to your AI initiatives. So, got another question that says, we run into errors as things in the real world change. Is this linkage a one-time thing? How is this connection maintained? So Jay, do you have some thoughts on that? I think we both have a lot we could
Yeah,
say here. Yeah.
yeah. So part of the partnership, right, is ensuring that we have got data scientists on the D&B teams, data scientists on the Precisely side that are constantly working together to ensure that the IDs remain linked appropriately.
Hmm.
So it is not a one and done. It's a full solution set, right? That we, again, if those links are not maintained accurately, then again, you get inaccurate results, right? And that is
Yeah.
absolutely not what Dun Bradstreet or Precisely is looking to do, right? So absolutely, it's not a one and done, and we will work consistently with Precisely to make sure we've got the accuracy to deliver optimal solutions for our customers.
Yeah, and I think that the data even changes more than some folks might realize, right? So if you're trying to maintain it by yourself, it can be a little bit tricky with just changes in addresses, changes in businesses closing or merging, and there's new records generated with all of that. So having Precisely and D&B the ones doing that work upstream to make sure that those links are accurate over time is a really huge value add, as opposed to doing it manually and trying to keep up with the pace of change that you encounter in data on a day-to-day. So yeah. Got another question here about delivery. So how do you deliver the data that you've made available? Would I access it only in certain environments? So we have the data available through our APIs, and I think across both organizations we support, as Jay was pointing to in sort of that process diagram, a number of ways in which we're delivering the data. So whether that's on premises or in your cloud environment, or if you want to pull that data in through APIs, you could come to the Precisely developer portal or in our Precisely data integrity suite, and call what we call the data graph API and pull that data through that has the linkage to the DUNS number there. As for the linkages between the DUNS number and the Precisely's various IDs, if it doesn't make sense for you for whatever reason to pull that through an API, we can also support delivering just a full flat file of that table to you. So there's a number of ways that you could access that data, and I think regardless of the environments you're working in, whether it's Snowflake or Databricks or a combination of that and on-premises, we're going to be able to deliver not only our data individually, but also the linkages between that data to your environments. And then lastly, got a question here about struggling with overlapping data and duplication issues and wondering about how this ID linkage really helps solve that problem. And I think, Jay, you sort of touched on that earlier, but when we think about, in this case, it sounds a lot like entity resolution. How does maybe Dun Bradstreet or us coming together with Data Link here really address this problem for folks?
Yeah. Well, and again, it depends on for the specific use case, what is a duplicate, right?
Mhm.
Is it a duplicate building, a duplicate parcel, a duplicate business? And I think Precisely solves that in one way as it relates to the location. D&B solves that another way with the use of the DUNS number, right? Being a unique identifier for a business location. And that is a uh, huge use case from a customer perspective on the D&B side, right? A
Mhm.
lot of siloed data that in effect they need to connect, and then as well as even within a single silo, right? A lot of records that in effect look similar, but either are the same business or are not, right?
Mhm.
A lot of times companies have as much problem using software solutions to dedupe, right, where they're merging records that shouldn't be merged. They're separate business entities. So again, I think that's a strong value prop from a Dun Bradstreet perspective, as well as a Precisely perspective. And then again, you combine the two. It depends on what your definition of a duplicate is.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. It looks like those are all the questions that we've got currently. So I'm just gonna wrap up by saying thank you. We really appreciate you coming to this webinar. And if you want to learn more, again, we'd encourage you to check out the resources that are available here in the webinar portal, or if you want to come to either of our websites or reach out to learn more about DataLink or any of the data that either Dun& Bradstreet or Precisely is delivering to customers, we'd love to chat with you on that. And I also want to say thank you to Jay for joining me on this webinar. Really great to have you. Love working with Dun& Bradstreet. So I
Absolutely a
think that's,
pleasure.
yeah, I think that's going to be it for us, folks. We hope you had a great time coming to the webinar today.